We need to create more structures to allow funding for entrepreneurs. And as you can see, unfortunately, sadly, most of the banks, they're not doing, let's say, corporate product, corporate financing and so on, which is very sad, First, they want to see the benefit, they want to see the impact that you are doing. And unfortunately, this is what happened the last couple of years, that, the reputation of Islamic institutions was not very clear for them.
Assalamu alaikum, Tarek.
Assalamu alaikum.
Brother, thank you so much for taking your time to be here. I'm really pleased and excited to have you here today to this podcast with you. You're originally one of the founders of the first Islamic Bank in Europe, in Germany. That was in 2013. And then in 2016, moved to the UK to continue to be involved with Islamic Finance. But we've spoken before, and a view that you've shared is that there is no Islamic finance.
Thank you firstly for having me. I think, yes, there is no Islamic finance. There is Islamic banks, but we should not call them Islamic banks. We should call them maybe Riba-free Banks, or participation banking, like in Germany, for example, we call it participation banking. So Islamic finance or Islamic banks, should include a lot of more values than we have currently.
Okay. And so that is, when we say more values, what we are talking about is the banking system, the way it works, is focused on the outcome it's achieving, rather than having Islamic values throughout the whole organization and the way it works and the value chain.
Yes. So what I mean with that is, if you look at Quran, for example, in Surah Al-Nahl, verse 97, you say the purpose of the Quran, or the purpose of life, is hayatun tayyiba, which is translated in English, well-being of people.
Yes.
So this means the purpose, actually, in the description of the Quran, the purpose of this life is not happiness or something else. It's the well-being of the people.
Yes.
So that's why, in my interpretation, any Islamic proposition should include the well-being. So if there's no well-being, for me, it's potentially not Islamic.
Yes.
And when I say well-being, there's actually a nice book which I will recommend you, from Dr. Martin Seligman. He wrote about authentic happiness, and he defined what is well-being, where he defined by a model called the PERMA model. The PERMA model is explained. P is for positivity. E is for engagement. So the more you engage, you have the feeling of the well-being. R is for relationships. So the more relation you have, the more you feel connections, relationships. The more happier, the more is your being stronger. Then M is for meaning. So whatever you do, you should have a meaning.
Yes, some purpose behind it.
A purpose behind it. And then A is for achievement. So there is already a model which is used by, for example, the Singaporean government to measure the well-being of the people. I think the US Army is using it. I think it will be good to potentially use that model and to create a financial model or financial proposition that capture this well-being. And I think this is where I think we are just focusing on the protocols, and not on the values. And this is what's missing in the Islamic finance world. And that's why I'm saying, look, there's many banks now. They're trying, I'm sure, but I think it's better to label them as a riba-free banking, which is an interest rate-free banking.
Yes.
And this is my view on that.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, I'd like to ask you for two things. Firstly, who's one person that could probably benefit from hearing this right now? Click that share button and get this video sent over to them so they can see this as well and also benefit from this information. Secondly, if you could click on that subscribe button, it really helps us probably more than you realize. What it does is allows us to get this message out to many, many more people that should also be seeing this and hearing this as well. And the great part is it's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you anything. So click on that subscribe button, and now let's get back to the podcast. So the banks and some of the products that exist, what they're aiming to do is create a form of finance that will have no interest in that transaction, but they may not necessarily have Islamic values throughout the way they operate.
Correct. So, you know, the challenge that I have seen from my experience, that you have product, you have contract. The contract might be Islamic, yes, they are verified by Sharia board and Sharia scholars.
Yes.
But if you look at the contract, you feel that there's no soul on there.
Yes.
It's just protocols. It's just structures.
Yes.
And I think, I mean, if you look at, you know, the holistic, let's say, approach for the bank, or, you know, there's no, for example, if you go to the Sharia scholar, say, okay, I would like also to show you the employee's contract or whatever. So it's just focus on the product,
yes,
nothing else. And this is, I think, the challenge.
And we were talking before off camera, and you used a great analogy around a marriage contract, a nikah contract. You say, what's the difference between an Islamic marriage and a non-Islamic marriage? We have a contract.
Yes.
But actually, it's not just the contract. So just elaborate what you were sharing earlier.
Exactly. I think it's not just a contract. It's more than that. And this is really, I think, the status quo of Islamic bankings actually reflect the deep crisis that the Muslim world has got, or, you know, I think the challenge that we are facing, actually, that we are using fiqh al-mu'amalat and in our interpretations, and we're using the same tools, okay, from the 9th centuries, okay, from our, you know, from our esteemed scholars, Shafi'i, Maliki, and so on, but we are not trying to, so we cannot think or we cannot interpret things with the mind of the people.
Yes.
So we need to create our new interpretation. We are living in a very complex world, and we need sophisticated tools that we need to create and innovate in order to face those challenges that we have right now. And I think this is the root of the problems that we have.
So when in the UK, for example, first Islamic finance products and banking was created, it possibly served a purpose because it allowed some products to come to the market that didn't exist. But they fitted within a framework and a model that wasn't ideal. So the products were created to try and work within that environment. But right now we're at a time with the, as I said, it's a very complex financial world that we live in. But there's also scope for massive potential change with AI, crypto, because we can start building and creating things in a completely new way rather than being creating product with one hand tied behind our back, as it were.
Exactly. And I think you correctly mentioned that AI could play a big role on that transformation that we need and that change that we need. You know, for example, I'll just give an example now. If you are an Islamic bank, an Islamic institutions, and you have access to the data, correct? So you can see, and one of the targets or one of the mission of a bank should educate the people, you know. So, for example, if I'm drinking coffee, I buy now coffee, and then a message comes from the bank saying, look, you, for example, consumed more than the average in this country. Then I think next time when I go to buy coffee, I will think about twice.
Yes, bit awareness.
It's awareness. So it's a feedback, it's awareness. And I think the banks or I call them bank or financial institutions, could be tech. There's an opportunity here to use the AI in order to achieve those missions that we are currently missing, you know.
One thing we also talked about before was the stats around usage of Islamic banking, Islamic finance. I use these in very broad terms. Yeah. So around 20% of the Muslim population, if you like, if an Islamic-based financial products available to them, they will use that.
Correct. And we did some market research. That was back in 2013 to 15. At that time, we took, randomly Muslim population from the border, for example, in between countries, Germany, Belgium, Germany, Holland, and so on. And I think the results are very similar to UK here. 20 to 25%. If you tell them, look, I will give you an Islamic alternative, will you switch to it? They say, definitely, I will do that.
Yeah.
But interestingly is 75%, that they're saying, I can switch, but under the condition that the quality of service is good as other banks and the pricing is competitive as other bank. So I think here we have a bigger opportunities. And I think that most of the Islamic banks, they focus on this 20-25% core market.
Because it's easier to focus on them and service that market.
Correct. It's easier to serve them. And I think, but the opportunity is bigger.
Yes.
If you look at the statistics and market trend, by 2050, you will have around 70 million Muslims in Europe. So it's a huge number.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's a big opportunity, and we need to do more. We need to explore more, and try to find ways to get the 70%.
Yes.
Not just the 20% or 25%.
Often the perception is you need a large amount of money to be able to get involved in property. Although that can be the case, it doesn't necessarily have to be. There are many, many different ways that you can make money from property. The biggest challenge is, though, that many of them can't be done in a Sharia-compliant way. There are, however, still some strategies and techniques that can be used to make significant profits from property. I've put together a short training for you that explains how you can make money from property in a halal and Sharia-compliant way. Head over to the link, which is sajidhussain.com/halal, and you can get the free training there. Now let's jump back to the podcast. So one of the objections, as you mentioned, that you hear from people, commonly when I'm speaking to people, there's often two core objections that come up when I'm talking about Islamic finance. Somebody raises that question with me in conversations. One is the pricing, as you just touched on. The direct comparison cost-wise, it tends to be higher. And secondly, it tends to be the understanding of, is it truly Islamic? And you already said earlier that your view on that. Why do you think there hasn't been this change and addressing of those issues within this space? Because there are lots of providers now. We are not limited to one provider in the whole country, and we don't have a chance, and they just cream off the easiest clients. Yeah.
So I think the first challenge is, as I mentioned, this focus of the 20% core clients that they have. The second challenge that we have is that there's no big push from the clients. So the client is enough for them to see, okay, this is halal or Sharia certificate. They say, okay, I will do it. So there's no big push. And that's why I think part of the change, we should focus on educating the people and make sure that they understand and we can raise their awareness about the product. And I think this is really an important step going forward.
So in terms of your thoughts on, at the moment, there's a few different core models that many of the Islamic financial institutions will use to structure deals.
Yes.
And what's your thoughts on those models that are using, and why do you think they've not evolved, and how do you think we can evolve from them?
Yes, so the main contract that they're using is, they are actually, I don't know, it's confusing actually, because they're using Arabic names. We could use even English names. You have the Musharaka, which is a partnership.
Yes.
You have the Mudaraba, which is the joint venture. And actually, my view is firstly to, eliminate any Arabic words on that. So just put the English names on them, because there is already existing contract in Europe. And one of the, actually, if you go back to history, the Mudaraba contract, which is called Commander historically, that was used by the Italian to make the Italian Renaissance.
Okay.
So, and I think it's really important not to confuse people, just to make it simple and keep it simple, to rephrase and to rename the names with their names. So we are speaking about easier to understand. There's a joint venture contract, there's a partnership contract, and there is the Ijara contract and Murabaha contract. And for each of them, there's there's already in English, or there is a European contract that exists everywhere. So in terms of product, they are the same product. Okay, and actually, my view here, how you structure them, at the end of the day, you are trying to replicate in a transaction from, in Islamic perspective to make it Sharia compliant.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're taking an existing model already you're trying to replicate how it would work normally,
Correct.
but not having interest on it. So trying to force it to fit in that way.
Correct. And this is what Europeans or Christian people have been doing in the 13th century and 14th centuries. So, and that's why for me, it's, they use, for example, a contract called Trinios, contracting Trinios at that time. It's a bundling of 3 contracts. 2 sale contract and 1 insurance contract. And I mean, each contract, it's permitted from Christianity perspective.
Yeah.
But if you bundle them together, actually you will achieve a replication of a loan contract.
Okay.
Okay. And so that's why for me, I see all contracts, if you bundle them, you structure them, whatever, the way that you want. And at the end of the day, you are trying to replicate a loan contract. And that's why I think not to waste time and just call them Trinios.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is so my view is in terms of how we can develop this product. I think we need to put more values on those contracts, and we have to look at the purpose of the contract. Risk sharing is part of the Islamic finance.
Yes.
And we need to maybe start putting hybrid contract. We have already existing contract. Maybe as the next step to develop them, we need to put a hybrid product where you have a risk sharing component on it. And this is the only way how you can move forward.
Yes. Because any of the current products that are on the market right now, to my understanding, or let's say most products on the market, even if they are designed to be some share of risk or sharing of profit, the reality is the core capital is protected. So it's like a loan, and then there's a profit share. And it goes back to what we were saying, it takes the values and the essence and the spirit of what you're trying to achieve away, and you're just trying to meet the formalities of it meets this and this need, hence we'll put a tick box in it and this is good to go.
Correct, because this is the way how banks work, So I mean, Islamic Bank are acting in a normal, let's say, conventional banking system.
Yes.
And they have a product process. They have they have to report things properly to the regulation and so on. So you will not have a lot of other formats.
Yes.
There's no much flexibility, and even if you have flexibility, you need to put more capital into the bank. And I think the best way to do it is really to start looking at hybrid product until you achieve really a full potentially Islamic product in the future.
So starting to evolve from what we've got rather than just continuing to use it, because there's been very little evolution in these models since they were created not that long ago.
And this is really the challenge. For any change, there's a formula of change. The formula of change, they say, I'm mathematical, maybe just to put it in a formula, they say change is equal, you have to have a vision, then you have to have a plan, then you have to have a will, okay, and then you have to have a communication.
Yes.
So if one of the components is 0, then you never have change. And I think the main challenge within the industry is a leadership challenge. So because the leaders will put a vision for the industry, and I think this is what is missing right now.
So when leadership, we're talking about thought leadership in terms of how it can evolve. We need key people to lead the way for that innovation then to happen in the space.
Correct. So when I say leadership is, we need a lot of stakeholders also, because Islamic finance is not just about banks.
Yes.
It's about, all financial institutions, it's about endowments, about takaful.
Yes.
It's not just about an Islamic bank. So we need to create an ecosystem, okay? And they have to sit down together and create a vision for the industry. Because unfortunately, what we are saying right now, as you confirmed, and I was before with a taxi driver, and I asked him this question: why are not banking with Islamic banks? And he said, "Look, I don't believe in that," and this is really dangerous. So I think we need really to make this change happen as soon as possible, because we have a lot of we lose the 70%.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is not fair.
And it's a very slippery slope. We talked about a lot of the, previously we've talked about the Abrahamic faiths, where riba usury is just not permitted, and how over the years in Christianity and Judaism that's evolved and changed, and we're at the risk of that happening within Islam as well, where like the poor tax driver we talked about earlier on as an example said, I don't believe in it. It's the same to me.
It's the same to me.
And that becomes the norm. And
Right.
then we are on a losing battle.
You know, if you look at the history, as I told you, there's a 3 years contract which has been used by Christians. And then the church was obliged to compromise, and they actually redefined the usury. So what they have done is they split it. They say, look, if you are, let's say, lending to a person for personal matters, then you should not use usury. But if you are lending for a company or for project or whatever, then you can use usury. Commercial purposes, you can do that. And then you know where we end up now.
Yes.
I think it's a matter of really understanding the challenges that we have here in the market. I mean, you have a lot of people that they are not convinced about that industry and the product. And we need, even though you do awareness and so on, but it's not enough, because actually the reality is it's right. So you are doing a debt instrument, even though you are structuring with different Islamic structures, but at the end of the day, it's a debt instrument.
It's still debt.
It's still debt, you know.
It's based on borrowing, although
Correct.
the repayment structure may be structured in a different way.
Correct.
And what do you think is the reason we are not evolving, and what is it that why are we not seeing leadership in this space, do you think? Is it around unity, or is it the other reasons? Why do you think?
I think, look, there's a lot of people, they have good intentions. This is my experience. But I think we should have a new generation coming in to make this change happen. I think we need to think out of the box. There's a lot of people involved. They're trying to change things, but it's low, as you mentioned, or there's no change at all. So I think we need to educate the next generations, and using the technology now that we have in our hands with AI, with the crypto and so on, and we need to create new models that could do the job.
And how do you think the education can be created? What forms of education do you think should exist? Because generally the understanding of Islamic finance, even within the general Muslim community, is very, very low.
So education starts, look how many, just to give you some numbers, I think the average donation per Muslim in UK is around 600 to 700 pounds. So if you multiply that with a 3 million population, we're speaking about 2 billion potential of donations. And it's sad to say that there is no, for example, private Islamic school in the UK. Maybe there is some, but reputable private school. So we need really to invest in education in private schools and put, for example, Islamic finance and part of that curriculum.
Yes.
And I think this is how we make this change happen. So investing in really education, investing in entrepreneurs. I think banks are doing this. Yeah, this is my experience. So they are, if you have an idea, they will try to support. But I think we need to create more structures to allow funding for entrepreneurs. And as you can see, unfortunately, sadly, most of the banks, they're not doing, let's say, corporate product, corporate financing and so on, which is very sad. We need to create vehicles, new structures, whereby we promote the entrepreneurship, and I think it's really important. This is the first step to go for the change.
Yes, because even with funding, there's different levels of risk.
Yeah.
Seed funding will be probably fairly high risk. You've got the private equity type funders, or what could be a Sharia-compliant type of funding for that type of business, still fairly high risk, high reward. And you've got ultra safe funding. For example, lending money for the purchase of property that might be, say, 60 or 70% of value, which is the safest end and rather the high risk end. Yeah. But most of the funding seems to be in this very safe space, very little outside of that.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. I think this is why, really, we need all stakeholders to work together and create such, call it vehicles, funds to promote entrepreneurships. And I think this is really a major step into to achieve any change going forward.
Yes.
Unfortunately, banks are like banks. If you look at their balance sheet, 60-70% is mostly murabahas, transaction, and so on. But still, we can still work together with them and try to create entities whereby we can promote entrepreneurships and so on. And for facts, for example, the Islamic Development Bank of Jeddah, they tried to look at such structures, how to enhance and how to promote entrepreneurs in Europe. So I think it's a very important step going. Education and funding for entrepreneurs, there are two major very important points to make this change happen.
And then it encourages that growth as well, especially now with the growth of technology. And it's much, much easier to start businesses now and grow quickly than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago.
I agree. So I think we have one unique opportunity now with the AI and with the technology that we have to change, to make this change happen. Mm-hmm. And we need just to educate people and have a leadership which could, put a vision for the industry, and we can move very fast then. Because it's really with the technology, we have a unique chance actually to get there.
Yes.
And we should use it. We should really push for it.
And technology also allows borderless growth, that you could have teams spread throughout globally, tapping into knowledge and expertise to help build and grow and innovate.
Correct. So I think, it's nice to see that there's some fintechs, Islamic fintechs in UK and in Europe. And what is missing is the funding. Mm-hmm. And we need to work on solutions, how we can get this done. And as I told you, Islamic Bank they are not the only actor in the ecosystem. So we need really other actors to be active on that space. We have, for example, foundations, endowments. So they need to be aware to allocate funds more toward entrepreneurship, because this is an investment for future.
Yes.
It's not just putting money into real estate or anything else. So it's just it's
we
really
hear very little of like waqfs who are maybe funded the earlier universities and stuff, and those concepts could really revolutionize what's happening. At the moment, most of the funding for the banks and the providers of this type of finance, how do they get their funding? Where's that funding come from?
There's a lot of Middle Eastern active on that space, so they invest. But I think the challenge from beginning, so for example, if you look at the Islamic banking, the main challenge that we had is that we imported a model from the Middle East. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to create your own model.
Yes.
And adapt it to Europe and UK. And I think this is really a very important point, because you have people from Middle East, mm-hmm. But they have another vision, they have another preferences, which are potentially different than the one that we have. So because they don't understand the challenge that the community has got. And I think it's important not just to import models, but I think really to have models created by European Muslims, UK, British Muslims. And I think this is also a very important point here to consider. It's important to have a model which embed values, mm-hmm. Because most of the Middle Eastern mostly are looking for the returns. It's another culture. It's another. For them, it's okay. UK is a safe haven. I like to invest in UK.
Yes.
So to get a fixed returns, whatever. And this is part of the challenge also for a lot of players, because if you try to raise money from the Middle East, for example, you will confront actually a mindset of investors that are different actually for your needs here in UK. And that's why I think here within the European and UK community, there's a lot of money, and we need to reorganize ourselves in the way that we can create such pools of funds for entrepreneurs,
So how do you think we could evolve from the reliance and dependence on ultra high net worths, wealthy families, sovereign funds funding this type of investment to it being homegrown. As you just shared now, there's a lot of wealth.
There's a lot of wealth, you know. And
how can we tap into that? What kind of models do you think could evolve?
You know, as I mentioned, coming back to the 75%, you know, there's a lot of, let's say, Muslim people in you know, intellectual doctors, whatever. They have a lot of funds, you know. They're putting it in banks.
Yes.
And I think is to find a way that give them a credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's why we need a leadership, and you need an effort from all stakeholders. You know, because if you say, look, I am here partnering with this work for this bank, or I'm trying to create a fund for entrepreneurs, you can take it into different tax structure here in UK. I think you will have access to opportunities. You will have access to funds. And I think this is what's unfortunately missing. You know, I have for example, my network, a lot of ex-investment bankers, yes. You know, and it's, you know, first they want to see the benefit, mm-hmm. You know, they want to see the impact that you are doing. And unfortunately, this is what happened the last couple of years, that, you know, the reputation of Islamic institutions was not very clear for them. The value proposition was not very clear for them.
Yes. And that's a key point, because much of it is based on creating profit,
yes.
rather than what's different about Islamic finance, what is different about the values in doing business in this way, not just the structure of the contract, but for example, how you look after your people. And you talk about the PERMA model. How is that being implemented throughout the organization? And also, we talked before, you know, halal food as an example. We look at halal food and say halal, but actually, just the simple thing of how was that animal looked after and fed, and what was his welfare before it became food.
Correct, and that's why it's coming back to the roots again. You know, I think really we need to redefine things. You know, yes. We need to redefine the halal circles. What is halal actually? What is the definition of halal in this complex world? It applies for food. It applies for money. It applies for anything. And secondly, we need also to make the people aware, not just to drink halal or to eat halal, but most important thing is to think halal.
Yes.
And this is really important.
It's a holistic thing, not you pick and choose.
It's not a pick and choose, you know. And if we can have access to the 70%, you know, trying to see, look, our proposition, actually, there's a value here proposition. Yes. There's an impact, you know. I think why not? They will invest the money, you know. And I think one of the challenges that we had, the first generation and maybe the second, that a lot of you know, the Muslim community, they're coming from other countries.
Yes.
And they kept attached to those countries. Mm-hmm. So they never thought about them as a strategical, as UK or Europe as yes. a strategical place for them. So that's why a lot of money, they say a lot of transfer to yes. those countries. I understand yes. they need to help their parents, their family, it's fine. But also we need to create something strategically here. So we need to create our identity as a British Muslim, as a yes. European Muslim, because then this is how we can build the future. And I think it's really important to make this from, you know, for my son, for example, I speak to them, say, look, yes. you are British Muslim now, you know. Yes. Okay, you are maybe originally from Tunisia, fine, but you have to think as a British Muslim.
Yes.
So how you build your future here. And I think this shift of mentality is coming.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see that in the Z generation now and so on. But I think it will be a big driver for change in the future.
Yeah, I think definitely the mentality is much more different.
Yeah.
The second and third generation Muslims that are in this country.
Yes, and I think the main point where we are right now is like I mentioned, it's a reflection of the status quo of the Muslim world. Mm-hmm. You know, we are in very, let's say, distressed situation. Okay, so we have a crisis. And we need to be honest to each other. You know, we need to change the tools. We need to redefine things. We need to define halal. We need to make change. This is how you make change happen. You know, if, for example, as a bank, I will, for example, give you financing, but it's cheaper financing if, for example, if you are a mosque, let's say,
Yes.
and if you have a renewable energy efficiency, then I give you a better financing. This is the way how you make change happening.
Because that social impact, you're incentivizing them to make a positive impact.
Correct.
And if that incentive is financial, people are more likely to and you drive that change.
Correct. So you need to drive that change, and this is what I mean with leadership. So you need to put those incentives in your product, and this is how change will happen, because you are pushing people to change.
Yes.
You say, look, I will have access to funding, but subject to this, and this. So, and this is an opportunity right now, and we need really to push for that, and create those impact on our environment, in our country here where we're living in, and we should be leading that process in terms of impact, because actually, this is what taqwa is. For my definition, taqwa is really the impact that we're doing, the things that we're doing for people.
Yes.
So we need to care about this stuff. They are really important things. They are values which we need to implement here. And this is how, for example, you have Islam spread in Asia, by trading, by commerce, It's not with war. It's just about, even if you smile. Yes, a smile, this is again to the positivity. Yes. It's a sadaqah for you, I think the good things is we have a really lot of tools, a lot of things that we allow us actually to be successful in this change. And we need just to organize ourselves maybe better.
Yes.
And having a strong leadership with, to put a vision. And I think the rest would be very easy. I think really education is a very important part. I repeat it. And we need to make sure that we invest in education. We need to see the challenge that the community has got, or Britain has got, and we need to find solutions. Yeah, but just calling it Islamic because we are having a contract like Mudaraba, it's not enough. The value probably should be better than that, and it's not fair to burn the name. Because it's actually okay. Your proposition is riba-free actually. Okay, so you're avoiding interest rates, fine. But you should not label it as Islamic, because it's not fair. It's dangerous. Because you might lose the 70% that you have. And this is really my concern. And we need to work hard on this. And we need to think out of the box. And hopefully we can make this happen.
God willing.
So, and I think back to the formula, you need always a vision, plan, and will. And I think everyone has got a will here. All stakeholders, they want to change.
Yes.
But it's just the matter of the vision which is missing. How we position ourselves in this complex world that we have, and especially with now, you can see that Islamophobia is getting, is increasing. So we have challenging of world order, maybe changing. So we need to position ourselves as a European and British Muslims here, and find the right formula. Which we have a sustainable, let's say, model that can help grow the community and the country that we're living in.
So when I have these conversations, and one of the reasons I started this podcast is that I'm a bit saddened by the state of affairs that we're in, and that where we are with Islamic finance in this country. And we talk about the UK being the most advanced than there is in anywhere else in the Western world. But at the same time, I'm massively inspired when I speak to people like yourself who have hope and vision. And you can see, yes, we're going through this lull period, but actually now is the opportunity for us to mushroom the way that business can be done and the financial models can be created. We're not restricted to what we have been done, and those shackles can be broken, and so much more can be created from this. So I just want to say thank you so much, Tarek Kallel, for your time and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Much appreciated. As I said, it continues to inspire me, and hopefully it's valuable to other people as well.
Thank you.
And if somebody wants to reach out to you and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I think the best way is by email. I will share with you my email, so we can put it on the chat. And I look forward for any questions. And I'm just to again, I'm observer. I'm trying to put my ideas I had a experience in Europe and UK, so which is good. It's really very interesting to compare also markets and see how we learn from each other. And I think we should be positive.
Yes.
It's just for the time being, I think we need just to look at Islamic Bank as a riba-free institutions.
Yes.
And I can see here a couple of banks, they are trying to shift into ESG, but it's not really Islamic, because Islamic is more than that.
Yes.
So we shouldn't be, let's say, the label Islamic. It doesn't mean that. So we need to be diligent, and we have to understand. And it's a simple. I think it's a simple way how it's always to look at risk rewards. Risk return. So if you compare normal banks with an Islamic bank and you compare the contracts, actually in terms of risk, there is no difference. Yeah. So that's why it's for me it's like a debt. A contract, whatever structure you're using is fine. You're using murabaha, commodity, murabaha, or diminishing musharaka, and at the end of the day, it's a debt-like instrument.
Yes, it's based on debt.
And debt. So that's why I think we need to think about it from another perspective. Say, okay, look, this is an opportunity for me to do it as an interest rate free product, and it's more to look at the impact of the bank. What are they doing for the community for this? So we should not actually be stuck on this halal, not halal.
Yes.
And we are all not Islamic scholars. I think it's just a period of time. It's normal. It could happen. It's an experience. We're learning a lot. Everyone is learning a lot from that experience. And I think having the right leaderships, I think this will change, and it will be changed very quick to the experience that we already have.
Yes.
Plus the new technology that we have in place now. And, and the product is it's actually not just for Muslims, or it's actually, it's a Trinius.
It's based on good ethics and values.
It's exactly. It's a product that actually, we, at the end of the day, we are trying to, avoid usury, which is applicable for Christian, for Jews, even though I know that they have the contract. So, I think, we are part of the community. We are trying to, put an impact for the Muslim and for non-Muslim people. And we will work hard to achieve that. And we wish I think it's also important to mention that, for example, in Germany, what we have done is we try to interact with the Christian community, the Jewish community, trying to develop together something. And this is coming.
Everyone benefits.
Yes, because they have more experience than us in the past. Centuries of experience, and that's what they created. And I think that could be also very important to have this dialogue with other communities and try to explore and see how we can work together in creating a riba-free product. Which will be applicable for a Muslim, Christian, and
it's based on fairness, essentially.
And this is important. One of the basics of Islamic finance is transparency and fairness. We need to be fair, and this is, I think, the basis for anything successful. You have to be fair.
Yes.
And ethicality is part of that proposition.
Yes.
You cannot, for example, offer ethical product or Islamic product and your people are suffering, for example, within institutions. Just to give you an example, we compare ourselves always with ethical banking in Germany. And an ethical bank, for example, if someone like to have a financing from them, they will check even the glass door, for example, how are the companies treating its employees, and if they see, okay, this is below a certain level, they will not provide you with the financing.
Yeah, so if it's ethical finance, they want to see that their behavior is ethical.
Correct. Yes. I think it's all about the behavior, how you're dealing with your clients, how you're dealing with your employees. And I think this is what will make the difference at the end of the day. We're trying to put an impact. And I know that there is a lot of talks and emotion. People are disappointed, but I think we should be positive, and things will happen. We need just to do it on the right way, and that's it.
God willing, and maybe make it easy for you and all those that are leading this way.
Thank you
so much again for your time.
Thank you very much.